Hello there, I'm Leo Warder for Kit Guru, and this case is the NZXT S340 Special Edition, or SE model. You might look at the logo on the front, and there's a couple of other logos around as well. Look at the triple snake design and think to yourself, you might think Razer. Curiously, this is not the NZXT S340 Razer edition, it's the NZXT S340 SE designed by Razer. Apparently there's some legal shenanigans to do with copyrights or some such weirdness. Anyway, that's what the logo is on the front. So what we have here is a case that is fundamentally an S340 with a few extra bells and whistles. It's matte black, it's got some sort of underlighting. If I turn this magic switch on here, behold the green underlighting. And there's another of these snake logos inside, which I'll show you in a second, and the USB ports on the top are green, which is unusual, and the window panel around there is tinted. Right, so there's the light, that's all lovely, and you can see the illumination on the front as well. And if I just turn that off and turn off the power, pull out the cord, and I'll take off the side panel to show you the innards of the case. And then turn that back round, and we still have the NZXT Kraken liquid cooler inside, which the light on that are set to green. You can change the colour to any colour you like, and I set that to green to match the underlighting. The underlighting and the front, it's green, that's your one colour choice. You get no options with that, green obviously being Razer. So, a basic S340 is 60 quid, 59.99, and it's fabulous. We like the S340 a great deal. It is a budget case that has not a lot in the way of bells and whistles, but it is very well designed, and you can easily build yourself a very tidy PC on the cheap. That's the important thing. This, on the other hand, is £84, so you're paying £25 extra for the not Razer, but Tangled Snake, let's call it that. The Tangled Snake matte black type stuff. And if you look inside on the cable management panel, there's a Tangled Snake logo there as well. So the question is, well, partly the question is, do you pay £25? Is it worth paying £25 for those features? To which I would say it's a very easy sell, actually. If you have Tangled Snake products in terms of your gaming mouse and such, like, easy sell, you're looking at S340, buy this one instead, job done. If you don't have that type of mouse, then it's a matter of taste. I'm going to leave that to you because I think it's okay. I like the styling, I like the matte black, I like the green and so on. I'm not mad keen on corporate logos and calling themselves special, if I'm entirely frank with you. So I'm in two minds about the actual logo. If I just pull off the front panel and break this block connector, this is new in this because obviously that feeds the illumination there, and that takes you inside. And if I'm entirely honest with you, the thing I'm most keen and excited about doing in this review is that it's given me a chance to look again at the S340, because I was never entirely happy with our original review of the S340, even though it got 9 out of 10 and must buy, and it's a good case, I like it. The thing I wasn't happy about was I used this Kraken X61 liquid cooler back then. It's a 280mm cooler, and if you're going to install a 280 cooler in this system, or indeed a 240, you have to put it in the front. In the top, you've got a single fan's ventilation perforation opening. So you can't mount a full-length radiator in the top. You can mount a 120-140, and that would be absolutely fine, and I would actually have preferred it if I had a Kraken X41 here, but I don't. I have the X61, the big boy, and that's what I had when I did this review before with the original S340, and I put the radiator in the front, and I followed NZXT's sort of instructions, which was I mounted it pushing the air through the radiator, which means instead of pushing it through the top, it pushes it to the front. I don't like that much in general, because I don't like sitting in front of a PC or near a PC where the air's coming at me. I like it to go up and out, or out the back. Now, in this case, it's particularly so that with this front panel on, the air kind of comes out and hits, because it has to go up or down. It's really not it's not ideal. And I wasn't happy with the cooling. The other reason I wasn't happy with the cooling particularly was I was using a Core i7 4770 previously, which I'm convinced that my processor is a particularly poor example of the species, but I don't like those processors in terms of their cooling anyway. They perform well. I think the cooling suffers badly. That's my experience with those Core i7s. I don't think the heat can get out of the package adequately. Anyway, in this instance, what I've done is I built it with a Core i7 4820 LGA 2011. That's a Zeus Sabertooth X79 motherboard and some G-Skill Ripjaws memory. And the design of that processor is much better. There's no two ways about it. The cooling in this instance was absolutely superb. Let me chuck a number at you if I can just find it. The processor idled, would you believe, at 19 Celsius, and under heavy load went to 38. Now, I recently did a Deep Cool Captain liquid cooler, and I compared this platform along with a very toasty AMD system, a number of different coolers. The Core i7 4820, it cools well. It gets the heat out of the package. Whatever cooler you put on it, it's got a very good chance of working effectively. Most coolers these days do a pretty decent job. The Kraken X61, which I used in that as a comparison in that Deep Cool review, did a blinding job. On this CPU, on this motherboard, in this case, the cooling is just epic. And part of the reason for that is that I actually did it pulling the air through, so in through the front duct and in, and it worked absolutely fine. But that means I'm pulling rather than pushing, and that's not how the air cooler, the liquid cooler, is supposed to be set up. I wish I'd done that when I did the original S340 review, but I didn't. I've done it this time around, and even though it's theoretically not great, it worked like an absolute dream. One thing I will say, however, is it was slightly noisy. The air's trying to, I think it's because the air's trying to come in through this duct and in. But putting that to one side, it worked extremely well. The Palace GTX 780 graphics card there, that didn't run very hot either. That ran at 62 Celsius, idle 29, went to 62 under extreme load. So the innards of the case were cool as anything, absolutely fabulous. Getting back to the features of the case, so this is S340's. They are filtered at the front. There you can see the Kraken fans. We've got a filter for the power supply. Can't reach under to it without tipping the case over. Basically, the design is clip that in properly. The design is cosmetically different, apart from the electrics for the two, the top and rear fans are linked together to the lighting system to this button here, which powers the lights for the front and the bottom. The fans work permanently. So you don't actually hook the fans up to a header on your motherboard. You instead, well, basically they're just on. Now, initially I was concerned by that because they were running at quite a pace, and I was concerned they'd be noisy. In fact, I unhooked them from the electric just to see what they were doing, despite the fact there's a warning card that comes with the S340 SE which says don't be monkeying around with our system, not no way. Nonetheless, I unplugged each of the fans in turn. It actually made very little difference. This gubbins here, this is the wiring that comes down from the fans and goes off to the lights, and it has to hook into a power connector to actually feed the whole lot. I'm not mad keen on that wiring. I did a lot of cable tying. It was held in place with twisty ties. But once the cover's on, it's out of the way. It's not going to come to any harm. And it worked properly. It seems in reasonable quality. I don't know quite. It's just a sort of, it's infrastructure to the case. I just kind of wish it was tucked away a bit more permanently, perhaps in a conduit of some sort. Anyway, it didn't cause me any problems, which is the main thing. It worked well. One feature about the motherboard tray cutout there, and I commented on this with the S340 when I did it before, which is that the cutout's a bit of a peculiar shape. Now, obviously, this LGA 2011 motherboard, the cooler goes on from the front. You don't have a back plate to it, so the shape of the cutout is totally irrelevant. If, on the other hand, you have a regular Core i5, Core i7, the cutout is important. And in this corner here, you're close for comfort. It's doable. I did it before. You can get your backplate in, but it's a bit of a fiddle, and it's a curious thing, because if they just gave you a bit more space, you'd be laughing. Other bits and pieces on the back, cable tie-down points, there are loads of them. I was able to snuggle the wiring away without any trouble whatsoever, but the feature I particularly like about this case is this blanking sort of cable tidy panel, where you shimmy the cables into the side and they just go out of sight. The cable ties are purely to hold everything in place. Actually, you can get away without using very many at all. I just did it because I wanted to make sure everything didn't move too much. But that cable tidy plate, which is just basically a piece of sheet steel, works fabulously well. Adding the Tangled Snake logo to it to sort of draw attention to it, I think it's almost a bit peculiar, because the idea is it's a stealth thing that you don't even look at. You don't want to kind of look at it and notice there's cables behind it. Never mind. That's a mere detail. So the case is as good as the original S340. I'm happier with the build this time because I've got the Kraken X61 blowing the other way round, and I've used what I term to be a proper processor now, and the LG 2011 kit is significantly better to my mind than 1155, 1156. So I'm happy with that. The features, matte black I like. It's absolutely fine. It's one of those finishes that I was actually a little concerned at first, might be a little bit lightweight and scratchy, but it's lived up, or it stood up to the build absolutely fine. No marks, no nothing. Green USB ports, well, fair enough, why not? The illumination on the front and the bottom, nice enough. Fans being wired into all that, that's all great. What else? The on-off flush look. Oh, yes, we're into the realms of, they've added a little sort of tidy plate here, so your PCI slots is all sort of fully built, but whatever, it's a mere detail. And you've got your two fans. So, do I think, oh, hang on, haven't mentioned this Grid Plus V2 fan controller. I sent this along with the S340 SE. I didn't use it. The reason I didn't use it, and in fact I didn't use the original Grid fan controller with the original S340, is because I didn't need it. I've got two fans on the liquid cooler which are hooked into one connector, and that works with the CAM, NZXT CAM software. It works admirably well. I've got two more fans here and here, 120 fans, which are hooked in, as I say, to this permanent loom. So they're not actually connected to a motherboard header, and they just work. And I can't control the speed of those if I wanted to. I mean, I would like to, but I do have this thing here saying, don't mess around with our system. So the temptation to disconnect them and connect them to a fan controller, it's there, but I'm being told not to. If I wanted to use more air cooling rather than the two fans on the liquid cooler, I could do that. Then the grid controller might become useful. Now it's got 6 3-pin connectors. You then have to power it, and you've got some 4-pin adapters should you wish. One of the sort of minor gripes about this controller is that these are 3-pin, not 4-pin connectors. Logically we could do with a few, and then you've got a USB connection because this all hooks into NZXT's CAM system. CAM works well, it works very well indeed. The controller works well, it's just not necessary, and it's about £25, which in the context of this case is quite a lot of money. So if I wanted to add a bunch of fans and I want to be able to control them properly, monitor them, and not take up a whole load of headers on my motherboard, the grid controller would be a very good move. But I don't need it. I would like to have some control over the two fans that are instead permanently hooked in, but I haven't, and that's all there is to it. However, it didn't cause me any stress. So, the S340, just under £60, particularly if you mount your liquid cooler blowing out. Better yet, if you have a 120-140 liquid cooler mounted there blowing out, that to me is the absolute way to go about this. But as things stand, I'm happy with the build, I'm happy with the figures. I haven't mentioned the Seasonic power supply. I'm using my old faithful 520 watt fanless power supply. Now, you'll notice that the power supply cover is part of the case. It has 2 SSD mounts on it, but you take off this plate, power supply slides in quite nicely. You might think you can put it in from the side with all the cabling. That's actually a tricky move. You're far better off feeding it in from the back, putting the plate in. So, I like the SE model. I like the features, I like the look, I'm not sold on the tangled snake, let's call it that, look, the logo rather, the look I like. The fact that the lights are fixed to green makes sense because obviously that's what Razer's all about, but it's nice to have a choice, isn't it? Particularly for an AMD person, as we all know, nice to have a choice of red. But as things stand, I like it. However, would you pay £25 for the privilege? Well, obviously, if you're thinking to yourself, what I want is a Razer stroke tangled snake look, absolutely. If you're not, then don't bother. But the S340, having looked at it again 10 months after the original review, God, it's a good case. Really, really good. So the original got 9 out of 10. I think the more expensive matte version, maybe 8.5. But it's a fine, fine piece of hardware. So this is Leo Wardop for Kit Guru, and this is the NZXT S340 Special Edition. Don't call it Razer because it is in fact Tangled Snake. Thank you very much.